So thank you everybody again for joining us. Today's webinar is tips and tricks for studio designer software with Denise. So Denise has been on our webinars before. She is amazing. She has a ton of knowledge and she's definitely an expert in studio designer. So I am super excited to have her on board here today. Just go over some housekeeping here. If you have any questions during the presentation, type them into the chat box and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. I know we have Denise here to answer questions. We also have Taylor who's on our team that if you put something in chat, she might be able to answer it. And then I might be able to answer questions too, but Denise here is the expert in studio designer. Put them in the chat and we'll definitely get to them. Also, I'd love you to put in the chat if you're currently using Studio Designer or if you're considering using Studio Designer. So put that in the chat. Just give us a little insight to where you're at. So if you haven't met us before, I'm Debra Scarpa from Home Designer Marketing. In the photo here with me is Ashley. She's our operations manager. She is amazing. We have a full team of what I call A+ players. We help interior designers transform their brands to get found online, win their dream clients, and work smarter by streamlining their processes. And we help guide you to success with branding, websites, marketing, local SEO, improving your processes, social media, everything, moving the needle forward. Just to give you a little sense of our transformations, what they look like, just giving you a few. Every designer is different. Like this is Holly before, this is after. So think about your brand. If a prospect is searching online, are they going to, how are they going to perceive your company? Is it like this, where you look like you're in business, like doing this as a hobby? Or is it something like this? Like if they see you have a professional brand online, how they're going to perceive you as a more professional company. They're going to trust you more. They're going to assume that you charge more. They're going to be willing to pay you more. They're going to trust you with those bigger projects. They're going to contact you, like more leads are going to contact you. So absolutely, it makes a huge difference. Here's another designer, Nelson Jones. She has a totally different look. So you can see like every client of ours has a different look and feel, and it's super important to make sure that your online brand reflects you and your work, like the services you offer, the style, you know, that's what we want. So that gives you a little taste of how we help our clients. And then I'm going to let Denise talk for a second about how she helps hers.
Hi, everybody. I'm really glad that you're here too, and thank Debra for the opportunity. Love what she's doing and see how it kind of blends with what I do to really help interior designers. And what I mostly focus on is the back end office stuff, the number crunching, if you will. Studio designers, we're going to get into, it has a lot of features, but the feature most designers don't really want to have to handle is the accounting. So that's where my team comes into play, is just handling that backside so that you really can go focus on those beautiful designs that designers are so great at making.
Yeah. I am super excited about our webinar today and learn like from you everything that you do and that Studio Designer can help do. So super fun. Today's agenda, tips and tricks for Studio Designer software. So we're gonna just learn some quick ways to better utilize Studio Designer software, be more efficient, Just like, what is it, what it can do for you, how it can help you get to that next step. And I think that, finances and, how you're handling all that is super important to running your business. I always think there's 4 buckets to running your business: sales, marketing, operations, finances, right? So there's 4 buckets. You cannot grow your business if all 4 of those buckets are not working well. So think about your business, think about all those 4, right? If you don't have any marketing, your business isn't going to be able to grow. If you're not closing those sales and don't have a good sales process, you're not going to be getting enough work in the door. If your operations, you're not providing good quality service, there's issues with how you're delivering what your service is, then your business isn't going to be, you're not going to get good reviews, you're going to have issues, so that's going to be a problem. If you're not doing your finances the same thing, you're not going to be profitable, you're not going to be able to take on as much work. All 4 buckets have to be working in order for your business to move forward. I really want you to think about that, because when I'm thinking about our business, or I'm talking to people, I'm wondering what buckets are doing well, which ones are not doing as well, which one do I need to focus on at the moment to move the needle forward. This is a question for Denise, what do you wish interior designers knew about with Studio Designer? I'm sure there's a whole list, but
Yes.
What are the top things?
I think the biggest thing that I hope that they understand, or if they're not familiar with it, what I would say is that it's an all-in-one software solution. It is, in life we have kind of an 80-20 rule with many things, and it's 80% project management and 20% soft accounting, but it's one software. It's not different parts trying to connect to each other and things like that. So I think that is really the biggest thing. And it's built from how a designer actually does their process. They pick out a good, and then they want to quote to their client, they need to place the order and all that. And that's how Studio is actually built, as we'll get into and see. The whole platform is built off of that premise.
I love that, the 80-20 rule. And that's really good to understand, the project management versus all the billing and the accounting and stuff like that. So that's super helpful in helping understand it. What are some of your top Studio Designer tips? I know you're just going to give us a list, and then we'll get into more details.
Yeah, so some of the things that I'm going to cover today are just how the items and components work. Going to even show you what do you do when the county or state you live in changes sales tax, and you have a whole bunch of items sitting in there at the old sales tax rate. How to clone. I think that's a great feature, can save you some time. How to utilize date tracking for your shipments and stuff without having to have separate Excel spreadsheets, and a couple of reports that I find really useful. There is a gazillion reports in this program, and you can customize them beyond that, but there's just a couple I have found are really useful. So that's a few things we're going to cover.
Oh, that's so helpful. And what mistakes do you see others making?
Within this software, one thing I encounter a lot are that designers will utilize it for their projects, but have a different accounting system going on. Maybe they're using I don't know, nothing for their accounting there, or another software. But like I said, the software is integrated. It handles all of those pieces together. And I also see a lot of times where designers don't make purchase orders. And that's an integral part to this. And sometimes what I hear is, well, but my vendor doesn't require one. But for this system to really work properly so that you can see your finances correctly, which is how much profit am I making on these jobs? You know, like when you feel like, man, I'm working so hard and I'm not making any money. So this program is great at helping you track not just, you know, a profit and loss statement you can give for tax purposes, but it actually has clear down to the item level profit.
Excellent. That's excellent. And I love that it's an all-in-one solution, because
Yeah.
I don't think people realize like how much time, I mean, quite a few years ago, I had, for us, I had like the invoicing software separate from, like, this was a while ago when there wasn't as many all-in-one solutions,
Yep.
separate from the bookkeeping. And it took so much extra time. It was so much more expensive, because to transfer all that data from one system to the other just took so long, and it just wasn't as efficient. Like, think about working smarter with your businesses, like making things like streamlined. You really need it, because designers are too busy. They're too overworked right now. We need to make things more automated. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to let Denise start sharing her screen. We'll get into the demo.
All right, so this is the full version of the professional. And let's see here, how do well, I don't know how to get that to go away. But that doesn't really matter.
That's okay, no problem.
Yeah, let me just minimize everybody here. So on this program, when I have actually been a listed outside consultant with Studio Designer for 20 years now, that I've had the privilege of serving the interior design business. And when I first started in this industry, I quickly learned that some other options out there weren't built for this industry. And I wanted to find something that really was about serving the interior designer's needs, not the accountant's needs. And I discovered this software. It has morphed into better versions over the 20 years. It used to be a desktop access database driven, but it has always been a all-in-one solution. So that is something, like Debra was saying, what I have found is when you have multiple systems, your tendency for error is much greater when you're having to transfer and consolidate information. So I'm just going to kind of give you a roundabout bird's eye view of the program here. The first thing I want to really talk about is the fact that this is an item-based software. And by item-based, an item is those goods you're selecting. You know, think about, you're going to the showrooms and you're looking at their fabrics, you're looking at the sofas, you're looking at the tables, you're looking at all those beautiful pieces that you can visualize in your client's home. Those are the items. So everything in the software is driven by that item. But the accounting is even connected back to the item level, except for your overhead expenses, but it does track those as well. So in projects, we have items, and this is really where you spend the majority of your time as a designer. So everything that you're building is an item. And I always think of the item like a fork in the road. So let's say I'm picking out a dining table for my client's project. That table is my item. And there's two paths that we're going to take. One fork in the road goes down your client which is creating a proposal for them. Hopefully they're going to approve everything on that proposal. Once they do, the other fork in the road path that's taken from this item has to do with your vendor, which is that creating the purchase order, submitting the purchase order to your vendor, if that's applicable. And let me tell you, I actually do accounting for some showrooms here locally, and they get very frustrated when designers don't provide purchase orders, because it really helps them help you with tracking those systems. Even vendors like Kravit that you're online, Forehand, Surrey, all of those different vendors you might be online shopping, they still have a place for you to input a purchase order number and just make it a lot easier to track. So I'm just going to quickly open up, and then you'll also see this is driven by your client projects. This particular database I'm in is under my business name, so it's kind of a playground. This is nobody's real work or anything. It's just my made up stuff. So you can see here, I can just switch around from project to project here. And then I can also, this is driven by rooms, which is great because designers do everything by room. You know, you're working on the kitchen, you're working on the master bath, you're working on the patio. So it's very room driven. The majority of the reports are also room driven. And then you can even write here real quickly, you know, like if you're like, man, you know, I want to find the information on that headboard, and you had put the word headboard in your description on the item, then you can filter by that. So it just really makes things very quick and easy to find. I'm going to open up this one that I have in here, so you can kind of see some details on it. So right here, we've got our client. Once you create the proposal, then you can't change the client, obviously. You've got your vendor. It has a ship to, so that when you give your purchase order to a vendor, for instance, on a fabric, your ship to might be a COM address, so that that fabric is going to the manufacturer, so that, you know, Holly Hunt can put on the Kravit fabric or whatever. You have a sales code. The sales code, you know, furniture, accessories, fabric, so forth. This actually connects back to your profit and loss statement. Your room list is typically going to be the residential list. It comes preset in Studio. You can add to that if you want, but all your standard rooms are in there. And so you select a room, and it automatically is going to fill in an item and a component. And what I love about this is it thinks like you do. For instance, we have this headboard, and the headboard is both a headboard, but it's also fabric. And so your fabric would be the same item, but component B. If you're working on a window treatment, you could have 5 different parts that make up that one finished good. So they would all be the same item number. Your component would be A, B, C, D. You know, you've got the window treatment, you've got your workroom labor, you've got a fabric, you might have hardware from a different vendor, and then you might even have another vendor that does measuring, a different one that does installation. So all those things can be done here. Your client description is what the client is going to see on their proposal. And you can see that the vendor information is different, because we don't, you know, we don't want our clients to go shopping us, right? So we don't necessarily want to give your client all the Kravit item numbers, but we want your vendor to know, hey, this has a COM that's a Kravit fabric, 2 yards, so that they know what to match up to your project. And then coming down here, this is what helps track your profit. When you put in your purchase cost, this is what you're paying for the goods, and it automatically copies that information over to your selling. And then you can preset markup. So you can have a company level, a client level markup that automatically fills in. You're not having to sit there with your calculator and do math. But you can also override this. You know, maybe you went to the showroom and they had an inventory piece sitting on the floor, and you know, you're just like, well, I'm just going to sell it for X dollars. You can always override this very easily. You can see right here, it's tracking sales tax. It does that calculation automatically based on your settings. And then in the other cost here, we can input freight, and we've got your purchase cost, which is what you're paying, you're selling. It allows you to mark up your freight. You can input other categories like an installation, you know, crating fees. Right now, a lot of you're probably seeing where you're getting surcharges on freight shipments and things like that, different taxes and things. You might even have a cutting fee on a, you know, piece of leather or something. So you can just build all of those things right in here. And then you save it, and then the program is going to do all of your math automatically. So that's one of the great things I just really like about this. The other thing that's great here, and like I said, we're going flying by like a bird here. I'm not going to learn how to do this, but want to just show you what it's capable of. You can do images. So it's really easy to drop and drag images into the item, which is great because then on your proposal to your client, they can see the picture. I always recommend you get your client to approve the proposal so that, you know, they don't sign off, and they can see a picture that the dining chairs have no arms, and then you go to deliver them and they're like, but I wanted them with arms, you know, little things like that. But right here under codes, this is a great tab. This is where your sales tax location, this automatically fills in from your templates that you set up. I strongly recommend you have somebody who knows this software do your settings, because that can really affect your financial statements and everything. And then down here, I want to show you this. So again, this is under the codes, and I'm still on this item. Down here, this is where it has all these date fields. So you can track when you requested a quote, when you received a quote. If it's a fabric, you can track that you approved your CFA. You got an order acknowledgement. They gave you an estimated ship date. You can track when they actually shipped it. And in the expediting, you can, these are all just dates, but over here in your expediting, you can actually put a little note, you know, like you can say, oh, it's backlogged, or, you know, it's on back order or something like that. So these are great dates that you can put in here. And then I'm going to close this. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this filter, and I'm going to get rid of this filter. So I'm only looking at the Smith project. And over here, we have these views, and a lot of designers don't realize these are in here, or they only look at these top two. So right here, the default is details, which I can see at a glance, my information, my purchase and selling. If client payments and vendor payments have been applied, they'll show right here, so that it's real easy. And again, this is kind of a playground, so I don't, you know, keep up the accounting. I just do it as I'm practicing. But here you can see a payments applied, and they have a balance, which we can see there would be the freight. I can see my proposal numbers, and as I create orders, it would fill in here. But if I go to list, then it collapses that, and it just makes it a lot easier to kind of see here. And you can see it's ordering it by room and then by your item and component numbers. The other great thing right here is those dates we were just talking about. So if I keep going down my list, right here is a date. So right here is where I can see my tracking on my dates at a glance. I don't have to keep a separate report. I don't have to keep an Excel log. You just need whoever's handling your expediting to be very up to date with filling these in. And you don't necessarily have to use them all. Definitely, you know, that you're got a order acknowledgement, an estimated ship date that it shipped. I usually, when I used to do expediting for a designer for many years, I would click the received. That meant that I'd confirmed that my receiving warehouse had it in stock. Not necessarily that it was installed at the client, because you know when you've installed, you don't necessarily have to track that, but you definitely want to know that your receiver has it sitting in the warehouse, so that as you're planning your install dates, you're prepared. And then of course there's reports for that. And then here's the other great thing is right here, there's also a profit. So right now I'm only showing my client project of Smith. So right here, it's showing my sales dollars, my purchase dollars, my profit. Other profit would be on freight. A lot of designers do mark up freight a small amount, like 5 or 8 or 10%. But again, right here, you can see quick glance, and then each item, you can really quickly see what's going on here. So I love that, I don't even have to dig into reports to just kind of quick glance and go, how is my Smith project doing? And then you can of course go and pull reports. If you have somebody like a senior designer who might be getting commission on projects that they bring into your business or something like that, then you can pull some profit reports and, do a commission calculation on that for your employees, lots of different things. So that's just kind of a great overview of why I just really like this software. Again, I said it was kind of 80% project management, and that's all this stuff we're talking about right here. The next thing I want to show you is, this is just my personal how-to on how to do a return. So let's just say a piece, is on back order forever, right? That's happening more and more with COVID. So you might have a fabric that you ordered from Krabbit, and you find out that that fabric is, back ordered for months and months and months, and you're having to switch over and replace it with a Pendler fabric. So what my method is here, so we've got our headboard, is we're going to just go right here to my original headboard fabric. And you can see my client's already paid me. I probably already in reality paid the vendor. But if I come in here, and I'm going to really quick make an order since I don't have one for this yet. So if I just select that, all I have to do is do that, and voila, I've got a purchase order created that fast. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to clone. And I'm going to do a clone that's also a return. So sometimes you might want to clone just maybe another client wanted to order the same thing you did on another project. So instead of starting from scratch, you can clone. In this case, I find cloning great to create a credit. So here's my fabric, and right down here in the bottom is a clone. Now, what you have to watch for is, this is a recent update they did, is when I do a clone, it's going to give it a brand new item number, because the items go by client, by room. So on Smith in bedroom 1, it's going to start with item 1. The next time I make an item for Smith in bedroom 1, it'll be number 2, and so forth. If I go to the master bedroom, it would start back with number 1, and so forth. So I just want to pay attention to the item and component I currently have. Then I'm going to click clone. Okay, and it says, well done, good job. Okay, and you'll see it's now given an item number 3A, but I want to make that item 1B. And then I add a little CR. And then up here in my description, I'm just going to note credit refund. Okay, so that I know that. And then I simply come down here and I make my quantity negative, so that this is making a reversal. And then I can come into my other cost and put a negative there. Okay, and save and close. So what I've just done is and just save and close, is I have now created an exact duplicate. So here's my plus, here's my minus. I'm now going to go in, and this is something you can do for this, or just let's say you did a proposal and you had 20 different things on it and the client loved everything except for one piece. Okay, it's very easy to come in and I can add this to the same proposal. Okay, so now both of the plus and minus are on the same proposal. I'm also going to put it on the same original purchase order, and this helps the accounting in the background. It's going to make you verify. Okay, and then if you want to remove something from a proposal, all you have to do is open the item and just simply click an X there, and it will remove that from the proposal by clicking the X. So that's a really quick, easy way when you've done a proposal for a client. Don't do that once they've given you money for things. Then the accounting can get a little goofy in the background. But just, you go out on that initial visit with a proposal in hand. And like I said, they love everything but one piece. You can simply go back, remove that one piece from the proposal, and then represent the proposal so that they can give you a check. And then you can come and start making your orders. So that's just, really quick way to do that. So that's kind of, really in a nutshell, your items, some quick ways to view things. Like I said, you can use these filters, build in all the information. I do want to show you, because this is something a lot of people don't realize. It doesn't happen very often. But if you have a client, and I'm going to come to my projects, and this is my address area. So this is where I can see, and I'm going to just go to the Smith project here. Okay. And if I go into Smith here, I can see my code. It has this sales tax. And if, let's just say Scottsdale raised their sales tax, there is a really quick way that you can change all the items that are on proposals, but not invoiced yet. And so if you run into that, I'm not going to really show how to do it because it doesn't happen often, but I just like people to know that if you do get a sales tax change, you don't have to go into every item one by one. The system does have a way that you can do that. And so you can just kind of quickly do that there. When you create a client, you can go in and set up these different codes and pick things up. And like I said, they are at the client. So you set them up at your company level, and then you can modify it by a particular client. So there's just, like it's so project management driven on how you work with your clients. It's just great. And then I can also see here, if I'm looking at my list of clients, right over here, you'll see this funds available. Funds available, typically we kind of refer to that more like a retainer. So maybe you take in a retainer for your design fees, and as you bill your hours, you're going to then apply that retainer towards actual invoiced time. Sometimes the designer will just take a lump sum and then go shopping, and then they'll need to apply it as they actually shop and find the goods that go on a proposal. So these are funds that the client has given you, but you have not yet applied it to either an item or to a design fee. So that's just a really quick glance way to say, how much money do I still have? I've got one client says, how much do they have in their kitty? Kind of an old fashioned term, your retainer, whatever. So this is just, again, a really quick way. Don't even have to pull a report to see this. It does have a time billing module for design fees. This is not their most stellar module, but it is certainly efficient for doing the job. It doesn't have an integrated time tracker, that you can connect to your phone. It might for the iPhone. I have an Android phone, so I've not been able to test that, but you can certainly do your design fees and things. And I have a feeling that at some point they might maybe integrate that with something like a T-Sheets or Harvest or something. Would be nice if they could do that. I put that on the request list quite frequently to the programmers, but you can certainly do your design fees. And it is important to do design fees separate from items. So time billing for fees, whether it's an hourly fee, a installment square footage contract or whatever, it is important to do those through the time billing and not up here through items, or else you're can actually make your profit and loss incorrect. So that's kind of just one of those. And then another thing that a lot of is really great is that they have recently integrated with Stripe. They've been a partner with Paycor, which I think became Payrock recently, for credit card, where you can collect credit card from your clients. They now partner with Stripe. Stripe is great because they do credit cards, but they also can take ACH payments. And you can makes a secure link on your proposal, so your client can just click a link and pay you securely. And it's a great feature, but be aware that when the client pays, it does not automatically connect that payment to the proposal. Actually, applying the client's payment still has to be done manually through the accounting money in feature. Some of you, I know I already saw one pop up that there are people using QuickBooks. QuickBooks, if you send an invoice and are using the Intuit Merchant Service, it automatically applies it to the invoice for you. Studio, it doesn't do that because Studio's, its great feature is that you can have these as moving, living works of art in your proposals. Things can change. They're fluid, that you can change them up until the point an invoice is created. So that is why it doesn't automatically connect. Is your client may pay you, and it's possible you might have gone in and modified by adding freight or something to where the amount no longer matches. So that's one of the reasons why, but it's still a great feature. From my team's perspective, where we're in the background and we're handling all the day-to-day accounting for our designers, we're applying your client payments, we're applying the vendor payments and everything. We really like Stripe. It's a great tool. We cringe when designers take Venmo because it's very hard to match up to the bank statement and know who paid you for what. So if you have somebody outsourced like myself, just, it's great to get paid quick, but it's also important that it's information that's easy to track. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And then now I'm just going to go over into reports. And as you can see here, if I scroll down, there are a ton of reports in here. So many reports. You can kind of get lost. Kind of down in here is really where most of the great reports is under the section called project worksheets. And you could, this is one area where I tell my designers, definitely go take one of those classes from Studio Designer Support on these reports, because there's so many of them. That you can kind of get lost, and you can customize them. If there's something really close and you don't want to mess with customizing, there's 90% of what you want and you want it tweaked and you can't figure out how to customize it, the studio support team for a fee, but it's pretty reasonable, especially if it saves you time, that every time you're doing something, you're wanting specific information. Maybe a specific report you can pull and send over to your receiving warehouse that they can easily check off everything that they've received. You're really set for that install day. So those are great. The two that I love though is this project client total balance. This is a great one. And if I just, let's go ahead and do our remodel project here. And then you just open it up as a PDF. And you can expand it here. Everything goes as a PDF, but this is just a really quick way to look. And again, it's by room. Almost all project reports are by room. You can see at a quick glance if it's what proposal it's on. These are time billing fees, so those are on invoices. You can see their price, other costs, the sales tax total, how much they've paid, and whatever their balance is. So it's a great way to just quick glance, look and see. I often customize this report and add a column for vendor balances due, so I can really quickly see what the client owes and how much is owed to the vendor. So you can kind of, okay, the client owes me $6,700. I owe the client $5,000, so I've got $2,700 of cash, flow coming in off of this still. So this is just a great one. I use this quite a bit. And then you just cancel to come back here. The other one I use a lot is this billing summary proposal. Oops, not proposal. We'll just pick a different project here. Okay. I have some designers that what they do is they like to give their client, they keep their proposals with just a handful of items. And I kind of recommend this too. This is a best practice tip, is don't make each proposal have a ton of items on it. It's kind of gets difficult with the accounting as things move around. So I recommend maybe one proposal per room. If you're doing a huge house, you might also want to do it one more layer down of by room, and then separate proposals for kind of your quick ship stuff, like maybe your linens and things, versus some custom furniture pieces, which might have like a 9 to 12 month lead time. It just makes your final billing a little easier. But this report just gives you a real nice summary where it'll do the math for you of here's the proposals, the amount due on each one, and summarizes in a nice list there. That client didn't really have a whole lot of them. That one doesn't either. Just find one here where it kind of, so you can just see. So this is almost like a cover sheet type of a report, and I hope you can kind of see it there. But it shows the client, your client, at a quick glance, and then they go, okay, I need to write you a check for $4,900 today that covers these proposals. So it kind of depends on how you're working with your clients, but that's just a nice little snapshot cover sheet. And then the last report that is very useful, I probably pull this up every single day for any given designer I might be working with, and it's called a payment application by date. And then if I, again, just go to a client, and what's great with this is it shows all the deposits that you've received that have been applied. It shows them at the item level. But what is great is it subtotals by date. And any given date is more than likely one check or one credit card payment or one Zelle payment that they sent you. And this is real easy for them. If they say, what did you apply my payment to? You can show them and they can see, oh yeah, I wrote, I paid a credit card payment of $1,500 and here's how she gave me credit for it. I did another credit card payment for $982. Yeah, they gave me credit for that. And if they have any funds in their retainer, it will show right here in this deposit balance if they have any funds on retainer. I usually kind of use this to just make sure we've applied payments correct. Sometimes the designer will go and remove an item from a proposal. And so when they print that proposal again, it doesn't show the client that they got credit for their full payment. But that payment is connected back to the item. And this report will help me see, oh, well, originally we applied it to proposal number 10. We've got an item no longer on a proposal. That's why your proposal balances are not reflecting the full payment. The payment didn't get lost because it's connected to the item. It just is no longer showing when you print a proposal out. So like I said, gazillion different reports in here. Quick overview of the system. The accounting is back here. So there's an accounting module. So here your balance is like your check register. It shows all the monies in and out. It does, you just go from your checking to your credit card. It'll default to the current month and year, but you can filter by vendor, by check number. If you're writing checks, you can look at the whole year. Of course, you'd have a lot more information. But so there is a full accounting in here. That I pull the sales tax reports for my clients. I don't keep spreadsheets or anything. Every report I need from an accountant standpoint to process sales taxes in here. When I package up financial statements for my designers, so them can send it out to their, sorry, that's my dog apparently wanting to join the webinar. But anyway, so I can pull financial statements for the designers to send to their tax person, or they can connect me to their tax person and I can send them directly. There are modifications that I do to this in order to keep it in a cached based, but I won't get into those details. But it is a accrual based accounting system in Studio, but I have some great workarounds and that put it into the proper format for correct tax reporting. And so with that, I will just turn it back over to Debra and do some Q&A here.
Wow, that was amazing. So much great information. That was really helpful. And like, I even took some notes. I mean, just how complex, the finances and keeping track of items and all the details. Like, I don't know how it would be very difficult, obviously, and a lot more work to be trying to do that by hand, without software. Absolutely. Yes. And what size business, do you think like a smaller size business? I feel like anybody could benefit from using the software. Yes. Just the tracking and everything. I could see how mistakes could happen if you're not using the software.
Yeah, the majority of designers that I work for are solopreneurs, usually one designer. They might have an assistant. And it's very reasonably priced. It's a monthly subscription. You're not locked into a contract. It's cheaper than other alternatives out there. And you get a discount if you get a subscription, if you pay annually. But yeah, it's definitely, back when I first started this, it was desktop and it was expensive. It was pushing $3,000, and that was 15, 20 years ago. So it was definitely not a price point, but once it went cloud-based, I think currently it's about $60 a month. I haven't looked recently. But that's very reasonable for what it does. And the fact it's all inclusive, the only thing it doesn't have a payroll module, but I have a great third-party payroll service that's very reasonably priced. And I still, can report all the wages. So it's on the profit and loss. All the office expenses get tracked in it and everything. The fact you can put pictures, and I always tell designers that are new to it, there are so many bells and whistles in here, but you can run a great system with even just the basics. I mean, just the stuff I showed today, and having somebody doing the accounting, whether you want to learn that yourself or not, most designers don't. But you can just use the basics and still have a great set of data to run your business. You don't have to get into the client portal and the vendor portal and all these, extra things. Those are great, but you don't have to use them to get a great benefit out of the software.
Yeah. Well, I definitely could see how helpful the software is. And I really appreciate you sharing this, Denise, because you are so knowledgeable It's amazing. Obviously, this is your superpower.
Well, what really drove me on this, I was, like I said, 20 years ago was, when I came out of the corporate world, my mindset is you have to serve your client. And what I have found is that most accountants don't know this industry. And most accountants don't know the software. And what they want to do is they want to put a designer in a software that they know that isn't necessarily the best thing. And a good designer is not going to try to sell their client, furnishings that aren't right for their home. And an accountant should not try to push a designer into a software the accountant knows that is not best serving the designer. And I went on a search, and this was, at the time it was one of only 2 softwares out there. 20 years later, even though there's other ones out there, I think this is the best solution. There is no perfect solution.
Right.
But
With any software.
Far more pros than cons. Yes.
Yeah. That makes sense. And like watching your demo, I could definitely see why just regular like accounting software it isn't going to, because I've worked personally, like ran the business for a lot of years and been on a lot of different software, used a lot of different software, and there's items there or things that studio designer can do that the other softwares don't. So absolutely.
From out of the gate, this was built, the original guy who originally created the software program did it for a person very near and dear to him who he saw struggling to run his design business. So it is not a software that's ever been, oh, let's make it work for design. It was built for the design industry.
Right. Yeah, you could definitely tell.
This, as we've gone from access databases back in the 80s to cloud platforms, it's morphed over the years, but that core has always been there.
Yeah. Well, obviously this is your superpower. Absolutely. What, and so much stuff in the demo just set your company apart, but tell me a little bit about like how you are different from others.
There are some great studio consultants out there. And we used to, before COVID, we used to get together once a year, and learn new things about it, commiserate with each other. It was, it's really great community. What I really focused on and have for 20 years since this door opened for me is designers are great at design. If you wanted to be an accountant, you would have become an accountant. But good designers who want to run a legitimate business understand the accounting is important. And I kind of call it mental clutter. Is when a designer typically tries to go into the accounting, it's not that they aren't capable, it's a different mindset. And it kind of zaps that creative energy from them. And so what my team does, I've grown, from just a 1-person shop to I have a couple of assistants now so that we can help more designers. And we really just take that whole back end accounting. We apply, we go in on, I have like an assembly line process, and we go in and we apply your client payments to those proposals and invoices. We work the vendor payments, we reconcile everything, we file the sales tax, we coordinate financials. I don't do income tax. I am a CPA, but I do not do income tax. I don't even do my own income taxes. That's a whole nother ball game. But I do keep abreast of things so that, like, if I'm categorizing expenses, I do so in a way that you don't have to pay your tax person to dig into the weeds and separate out stuff that needs separated on the tax return. I do 1099s at the end of the year. I'll process payroll. Again, that's through a third party that I found that's great, so that everything's recorded properly, and just really take that accounting piece off your plate. So my motto is, you go make the world beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you're looking at those 4 buckets I was talking about earlier, where it's marketing, sales, operations, and finances, there is so much to do in a day. Like there's just so much that needs to be done. Think about what you're really good at, what you really love doing, what you're not as good at, and where you need support. So looking at those 4 buckets, are you really good at financing? Is that going to be the thing that if you focused on, doing yourself, it's going to move you, like get you to that next level? My guess is if you focused at your design and deliverables and doing, like really focusing on, doing what you're really good at and getting support in other areas, that's really how you can get to the next level. And I'm super passionate about that because I've had my business for, over 30 years now. And for many, many years, I just worked by myself and I didn't, hire people or have, I didn't have people doing the books, or I didn't have, hire people, even if it was like subcontractors or just, and for many years, my company did not move forward. I kept on trying to grow it, but it just didn't grow. The reason it didn't grow is because I was stuck trying to do everything. So that's my personal story. And, I learned that hiring people that are A+ players and for different parts of your business is absolutely how you're going to grow an amazing team and an amazing business. And you're going to really service your clients better. So the overall service is going to be much better because you'll have A+ players. You can't be an A+ player for every part of your business and grow. It's just not impossible. We are amazing, but that is way too much to do in a day. Right?
One of the analogies I always use is I can look at a fabric and I can say, wow, that's an amazing fabric, but please don't ask me to design and actually put together the window treatment,
Yeah.
just, I have a few design clients who came out of like finance and banking backgrounds who are more than capable of doing all the finances. And they're the first ones to say, yeah, I could do it, but I don't want to. It just,
there's no time.
Yeah, well, and it zaps that creativity, like when I try to switch gears into something else, it's very hard. Whereas if I'm in my groove with what I'm good at and I leave the other things to somebody who's good at that, they can do it far quicker. And then I stay in my happy place, and like,
absolutely. Yeah. Where you, feel like you're just in a really good space in so many ways. I know Jen asked a question. She said, they use QuickBooks. Does this integrate with that, or would that eliminate the need for QuickBooks?
So that's a great question. And indeed, it eliminates the need for QuickBooks, Ivy, Design Dogs, any of these other platforms that are out there. Studio, as I said, it's an all-in-one. It does all the accounting. I would say 25% of my business is actually converting people from other platforms into Studio. Now I will tell, I use QuickBooks for my own business and I don't see that changing. Because for what my business is, QuickBooks is an excellent solution. However,
you're not tracking as much.
Yeah, you're not selling all these beautiful goods.
Yes, absolutely.
And my background also, when I first stumbled into this, I started working with a phenomenally talented designer. She's been an Architectural Digest, tremendous talent. And she quickly realized that her office person, I was always having to correct things when I came to do the bookkeeping. And so one day she said, well, can't you just do it all? And I came from a project management background. And so I found myself doing all of her expediting. I'd walk into her office, because that was back when it was desktop, and there'd be a global views book with sticky notes and quotes from John Brooks and stuff. And I was placing all her orders and tracking, sending out all the proposals.
That
So I did
sounds,
that for about 12 years. I did that for her.
yeah, that's amazing.
So I know
I'm gonna,
that piece of the puzzle really well, more than most CPAs might. So that's, I
Yeah.
don't just look at this as an accountant. I understand what goes into that role of expediting the projects. And
that is so good. I'm gonna step in for a moment, Denise, because I just
Okay.
noticed the time, our time
Yes.
is up.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that I get to everybody before we end here. But again, I'm Debra Scarpa from Home Designer Marketing. We do offer a free brand website SEO audit. I'm going to have Taylor put that in chat if you haven't signed up for that yet. Definitely super high value. And then I'll have Denise, would you mind putting your website address in the chat here? Because I'm not sure Taylor has it up. But she'll put that in chat. So if you want to connect with her, look at what she offers, go ahead and do that. And then, are there any questions? Thank you so much, everybody.
I
for
want to tell
joining us.
everybody they need to do that audit Debra just said. I even did that for my own business. It is amazing. You have to do it.
Yeah, I definitely try to, help people have more clarity on like why things aren't working. Why are they not showing up online? Why are they not getting leads? Why are they not getting their ideal clients? Super important. You need to have that information so you can move forward with what needs to change, right? We are all set. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and go have a fantastic day. And I hope you learned so much from Denise. I know I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Denise, for joining us today. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.